Alright, so everybody thought that Melissa, the Category 5 hurricane, was going to be Jamaica's worst nightmare. But the worst is yet to come. Yes, man, the worst is yet to come. So the Bank of Jamaica is warning households to budget for higher food and utility bills, and businesses to prepare for elevated input costs in 2016, as it projects a sharp rise in inflation driven by the impact of Hurricane Melissa. So the central bank say the price increase are not expected to return to its 4 to 6% target range until 2027. So annual heading inflation will rise sharply from 2.9% if overturned at October 2025, and will exceed the bank's inflation target of 4.0 to 6.
The context of your presentation in relation to the JPS situation is that the license expires, I think is it July 2027. Notice has been given, triggering the consequences of license termination. Jamaica has roughly 20% of the equity in JPS. The funding gap, based on the recently done work to do the restoration of the grid, including substations, transmission posts, etc., distribution lines, is around 350 million US. So our 20%, if you're looking at us as a shareholder, our 20% would be 70 million. But we are actually taking the risk of lending an unsecured loan to JPS of 150 million, which is twice the proportion of the equity that we hold in the business. So unsecured, you don't have any collateral to seize. You're relying on a mechanism to get it back, which I'm going to speak to in a second. So my question to you is, first of all, the other 200 million, which is currently not funded, but which is necessary to achieve the timelines that you have indicated for restoration, what is the assurance that that 200 million will be raised on a timely basis so as to enable the necessary expenditures to be made by JPS to hit the targets, which are presumably fairly aggressive targets given the extent of the damage to the grid and so on? What level of confidence do you have that that 200 million will be raised by them? And what is the time frame that it has to be raised by
Percent
for
over the near
that
term,
target
holding
to
the
be met?
policy rate unchanged, complemented by the proactive measures ensure stability in the foreign exchange market. So, as I said before, the worst is yet to come. So, Melissa has really devastated Jamaica, and as you can see, the Prime Minister or the House of Parliament is basically saying that Jamaica will not go back to what it used to was until a couple of years. And now we are seeing news that you have to prepare for inflation because the price of living is going up. When the price of living is already skyrocketed, and the pay is not raising. So we are living in a world where they're forcing us to suffer. We already are suffer, and yet still they are forcing us to suffer. So hear this now. So heated words were exchanged in the House of Representatives on Tuesday after opposition leader Mark Golin questioned the government decision to lend JPS US 150 million before the company secures full funding for post-Hurricane Melissa recovery. All right, so we'll all go another world. There always gonna be a back and forth debate in the parliament because a two different party actually have run one country, right? And what we don't understand, or what we cannot understand, is why is this relevant? How is this a headline? What are you guys trying to fucking do? Jamaica is gonna be going through inflation very, very soon. The ghetto youths them are gonna suffer from it more. Meanwhile, bosses, entrepreneurs, and homeowners, business owner, whatever the fuck you guys are basically not going to be affected by this. And you're telling me that you guys are basically debating about why did you let JPS 150 million US? Bro, what the fuck is JPS? JPS is Jamaica Public Service. JPS is the one providing the lights. If somebody don't fund them, or we're gonna get, or they're gonna get lights in the rural countries, the countries that was badly affected by um Melissa, or they're gonna get light. I'm gonna know most people are gonna say them now in the house, so where them want light for. But my thing is, the parliament always discuss things that is affecting them. Yeah, man, that's always a big debate in parliament. Things will basically affect them. If it's affecting us, they barely hear about it. If we reach to a point where it start to affect them, at that point, they say them a discuss it. But we came here, man, know, Jamaica, we as a country, we're doomed, brother. Especially we as poor individuals, we as you get me, I say we're doomed because our leaders, our so-called politicians, are basically fighting for their own right. They're basically fighting for their own way of living. You get me, I say? Because most of the thing when we see them discuss in a parliament, that doesn't make sense. You get me, I say? And I totally understand. Totally understand. We are not the ones in this fight. You get me? I say you guys are the one in the fight. We are the one that's suffering from the fight. So whatever decisions are made, we are the one that are feeling the repercussion of those bad decisions, so-called bad decisions. You get me? I say, but man, I think the parliament should come to an agreement, because there's a lot of things going on in Jamaica where crime is concerned, financial concern. Instead of you guys are basically debating about things that doesn't affect we as a nation. Why don't you guys trying to come up with solution to overcome all these obstacles that we are facing? Why don't you guys do that? But bro, as I said before, I've never seen anything discussed in parliament that has been affecting we as a country. If what they have always been debating about is what are affecting them, I can't understand, bro. We understand that there is two party and one has to run the place. But if either of you guys are not doing shit, I mean, that's the point.
I'd like to know the time frame for that. So I'll summarize. One is the timeline for JPS to fund the 200 million gap, and whether you would ensure that that funding is in place before you expose our $150 million.
Let me indicate very clearly for all of Jamaica to hear. The meeting that we had yesterday morning, where the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary was there, we ironed out a way forward, realizing the seriousness and the time-sensitive nature of this response. So the first answer to your question is that this government is prepared on behalf of the people of Jamaica to release the $150 million in whatever tranches are required as quickly as possible to get the restoration going. And that's the difference between a caring government and somebody who has a financial background. The people want light. Okay? So let me just make that clear.
Point of order, Minister.
Point of order.
Minister, point of order.
His feet, talking. The minister is standing on his feet, talking into the mic. You don't need to personalize your response. You don't need to get hot under the collar. It's a legitimate question I'm asking. And I'm just, so don't bother about having a financial background. I want to know a simple question. Are you going to